What's up everybody, Supersports fan here for another weekly update. So I'm just going to skip the entire car portion because there's so much news to cover this week with all the Detroit stuff in addition to other additional news that came out that's really awesome. So real quick about the Mustang. It performed very well here on the drive to Detroit and back this past week for the auto show. There was heavy rain on the drive back and high winds, and it handled it all very, very well. There was limited amounts of snow in Detroit that I did have to drive through when I was going through parking lots and things like that. And that it handled it totally fine with the snow tires, no issues whatsoever, and so I was really impressed with it and that limited experience with it. But yeah, it just did very, very well like I expected it to, and so that's all the news about the Mustang. But getting to all the automotive news this week, the first is Dodge officially announced a new version of the Challenger coming out called the SRT Demon. And they're saying this is going to be outdoing the Hellcat. It's going to be even faster than the Hellcat. And they released a Michael Bay-esque teaser that's pretty sweet, honestly, and there are just going to be several teasers. Their website that they have for this car is called ifyouknowyouKnow.com, and you go there, there's like I think 12 teaser videos that they're going to be releasing little by little up until the full reveal of the car, which is going to be happening at the 2017 New York Auto Show, which is about 2 months away. But hopefully these teasers will help us get through the wait for the next 2 months. But it's going to be the same Challenger we already know, just have more performance. It could be all-wheel drive. That's still up in the air. It's almost certainly going to be faster. How much faster remains to be seen. The teaser implied that this is going to be a drag racing type car. So we've been hearing about the Challenger ADR. This could be what that car is actually going to end up being called. That could be something different. I don't know. But this car, it sounds like its focus is going to be going in a straight line, which has always been the Challenger's focus. So I think it's just going to be just more of that, which is very exciting. Music to our ears. And so yeah, but you can watch those videos each week as they come out, and should be very, very exciting. And by the way, that's how you tease a car. It was really disappointing not seeing the 2018 Mustang at the Detroit Auto Show. And supposedly they had a private event off-site away from the convention center where some of the select media members were allowed to see it, and we're not going to be able to hear about any of those impressions. And apparently there's an embargo that's ending sometime early next week, and that is when supposedly the 2018 Mustang will be revealed. Who knows? But the whole release of this car is just kind of a buzzkill. This is how you do it. Build it up with a bunch of teasers. We're 2 months away from this Demon reveal, and they're going to be launching videos every week for the next 2 months. And so that's Dodge's marketing is some of the best out there, and so props to them for being awesome. Other awesome Dodge news. They're on a roll. I'm really starting to become a Mopar fan. Anyway, there was spied a new Durango that's probably an SRT version, very aggressive looking there in the front. We're not sure if it's a full-blown Hellcat model. Most likely what this is like an SRT shaker Durango, kind of like the one we actually just saw a complete version of at SEMA, although that one had like Dodge Viper seats in it and all that kind of stuff. It probably won't be that crazy, but you know, the exterior and all the I guess other elements such as the V8 engine, 475 horsepower, all that stuff most likely will be transferred over to this car. There may be a Hellcat version eventually, because we know the Jeep Grand Cherokee's getting a Hellcat version, but in the time being we might just get an SRT version of the Durango, which sounds really exciting to me. Other great news from Jeep, actually, is that they announced officially they are going to be building a Jeep Wagoneer, a Grand Wagoneer, and also a pickup truck that's going to be based on the Wrangler pickup. And so they said they're all going to be built in the United States, and the plant that's building them is going to be coming online in 2020. So expect all these models to be 2021 model year vehicles if they release them all at the same time. There might be a little bit of a delay. The Grand Wagoneer we've been hearing may actually be a few years after that, but at least probably a Wagoneer and that Wrangler pickup will be coming for probably most likely the 2021 model year, which still weighs out, but still very exciting to hear that news nonetheless. And some more great news that was not at the Detroit Auto Show as well is the Jaguar just online revealed the refresh for the F-Type. The 2018 F-Types get a light facelift here, and it just makes it look even better. I still adore the F-Type, and this makes the one even stronger now. So there's a couple new models as well here. So it's just all good news though, all around basically. All the new F-Types feature new LED headlights. They have slightly darker taillights, and every model except the SVR also gets updated front ends. And so the big changes are the side vents in the front bumper there, which are have gone from double openings or double slots to single openings in most of the cases, although you can see the new F-Type R front bumper does have that little horizontal slit in it. which is, different, but honestly, I think it actually looks really good. I think it's kind of a toss-up between which looks better, this or the previous F-Type R front bumper, but I think both actually still look very, very good. I just love those new headlights. They look so awesome. And so as far as those new F-Type models, there's two of them. The first is called the R Dynamic model, and then the other one is the 400 Sport model. So the R Dynamic's just basically a dress-up package that just has, and it's only available for the base and the 380S model. And so basically they're just better wheel options, and they black things out and make it look a little more aggressive. But the 400 Sport model is a lot more impressive. It's going to be a one-year only model. It's only 2018 model year cars are the 400 Sport, and as you might have guessed, it has the modified supercharged V6 from the F-Type V6S, but instead of 380 horsepower, it's now 400 horsepower. And so it's going to be available with either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but unfortunately, it's not going to be available with a manual, only the 8-speed automatic. I'm not sure why, but they also have larger brakes on them with 15-inch brakes at each corner, and they also are going to be, it also includes a new sport design package, which gives you a deeper front spoiler, larger side sills, and a sportier rear diffuser. It has a flat bottom steering wheel and contrast stitching and plenty of badges as well, of course, being a limited edition model. And so cool to see that. The other improvements to all F-Types are the infotainment is now better. So they all have Jaguar's Touch Pro infotainment system as standard with its 8-inch touchscreen. The other cool thing is a new app that they've developed called Rerun, that connects to a GoPro camera in the car, and so you film your GoPro runs of whatever you're doing, driving and stuff, and then you can use this app and it'll overlay the telemetry from your drive, G-forces, your speed, gear, all that kind of stuff, and put that as an overlay onto your GoPro video, which is very cool, very handy for YouTubers like myself as well. So I always have to wait and see. They haven't announced pricing. It'll probably be close to the current F-Type pricing, but they said these should be going on sale here in the spring, and so it should be available relatively soon here. And so great updates there for the F-Type. Now the E-Pace, this new baby SUV was spied too in other Jaguar news, and it's going to be obviously smaller than the F-Pace and try and cash in on the super hot tiny crossover segment, and looks fairly far along in its development as well. And I think this is something they're rushing to market, which has led people suggest that it's most likely going to be based on the Range Rover Evoque. And because of how short the front hood is, it also is fairly likely that it's only going to have the turbo 4-cylinder engine from the Evoque, which is 240 horsepower, and possibly a diesel, but most likely just that 240 horsepower 2-liter turbo engine. Again, this is a smaller crossover, so it's going to be less performance oriented than the F-Pace, but should be great. And as long as it helps to keep Jaguar afloat and helps their sales to do very well, then I'm all for it. And so yeah, cool to see that. Another car that was spy testing was the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, or whatever they're going to end up calling it. But it's basically another BMW X6 competitor. Now this one that was spy is just basically a lifted Panamera. That's not how the actual car is going to look. It's going to have a completely different body. This is just a rough mock-up to help, with the development of the car. But they're saying that this should actually be coming out next year, supposedly. So, I'm sure they're trying to rush it again because of how hot crossovers are these days. And so we don't really have much more information about it yet. But cool to see that out testing. Other Porsche news is that officially Porsche has unveiled the new GTS trim for this Mark II version of the 911. And lots of improvements like usual. Now, the models, there's going to be 5 different new variants in total. There's going to be the GTS Coupe. There's going to be the GTS Coupe with the all-wheel drive. There's going to be the Cabriolet GTS and the Cabriolet 4 GTS with the all-wheel drive, and then of course the Targa GTS, which automatically comes with all-wheel drive, so that's the only one available. So 5 models in total there. They're all going to have the same 3-liter flat-6 engine from the standard Carrera S's, but they're going to feature larger turbochargers, resulting in 450 horsepower now, which is 30 more than the Carrera S and 20 more than the 2016 GTS lineup. It's also going to have 405 pound-feet of torque, which is 37 more than the Carrera S and beats the old GTS by 80 pound-feet. So a huge increase in torque there is the big change over the older GTSs. 7-speed manual is standard still, thankfully. The PDK is an option. They're all going to come standard with Porsche Active Management, except for the GTS Coupe, which is going to have the PASM Sport and a slightly lower ride height. That's only on that Coupe version. And then in addition, it's mostly just a lot of visual changes as well. So it's going to have the Carrera 4's course, wider rear track in typical GTS fashion, and all the same typical design cues that you've seen on other GTSs in the past. With it's going to have 20-inch center lock wheels, tinted taillights. It's going to have the sports exhaust as standard, and the big thing is the Targa's center bar there is going to be black now instead of the satin silver that it used to be, which is an interesting change as well. And so yeah, as far as pricing for all of them, it's going to be $119,000 the starting price for the rear drive Carrera GTS, and $138,200 it's going to be for the Carrera 4 GTS Cabriolet and the Targa 4 GTS. And of course, with options, they'll all be well over that. So, but yeah, so cool to see that. More Porsches, the better. Another awesome car that was not revealed at the Detroit Auto Show was the new Bentley Continental GT Supersports. Now, I think this is the final version before the Continental goes away and there's an all-new Continental GT that comes out. So this version of the Supersports outdoes the previous versions and all other cars before it here. Twin-turbo W12 engine like usual, but 700 horsepower now, 750 pound-feet of torque. That's actually 79 more horsepower and 160 more pound-feet of torque than your standard run-of-the-mill Continentals. And so 0 to 60 time is 3.4 seconds, top speed of 209 miles per hour, and you can get it in a convertible as well. That's a little bit slower, 3.7 seconds 0 to 60 and 205 mile per hour top speed, like it really matters. And so of course, in addition to all that extra power, it's also going to have a lower suspension that's a little bit stiffer than a normal Continental GT in standard Supersports fashion. It's going to have huge carbon ceramic brakes that are 16.5 inches up front and 14 inches in the back, which is pretty wild. And it's got the typical style changes to make it look more aggressive. It's got 21-inch forged wheels, rifled exhaust tips, and all those additional spoilers and things. And overall, I think it actually looks pretty cool, and the performance is pretty impressive. And for the cars of Detroit. Now, for all the car coverage from Detroit, definitely check out my playlist where I cover individual cars. And so all those cars that I've already covered individually, I'm not covering in this weekly update. So you're definitely going to want to go back and watch those videos. The playlist link is in the description below to check out all those videos. And so that covers all those. Additional cars that I didn't cover. The first is the 2018 Audi SQ5, which is the faster version of the Q5, of course, that has been around in previous models. And so this new one, the big changes, of course, it's based on the all-new Q5, obviously. In addition to that, though, it's switched from the old one had a supercharged V6 engine. This one has a 3-liter V6, but it's turboed now, of course. So it's basically the same powertrain that's used in the current S4 and S5 here that just came out recently. So the horsepower is going to be the same, 354 horsepower. Torque is 369 pound-feet, which is a nice improvement. The car also weighs about 77 pounds less than the previous SQ5, so it should make for a better performing car in every single way. It's going to have an 8-speed automatic and standard all-wheel drive, of course, and it has all the typical improvements with it has an S Sport package that's available with a torque vectoring differential, and obviously has a lower ride height and all the sporty looks that you get along with the sportier interior. It's going to have a flat bottom steering wheel and heavily bolstered seats. It has Audi's virtual cockpit and all that good stuff. Apple CarPlay is standard now, and Android Auto as well, which is nice. And so yeah, they're going to start selling it here in the spring of 2017, and so they haven't announced pricing, but it'll be here very soon. Lexus revealed pricing for the all-new 2018 LC, the coupe, that was debuted last year and is now finally going to be making its way to showrooms here very soon. So it's going to be starting under $100,000, but you have to be careful with the options, much like the Germans. So it starts at $92,975 for the V8 LC500 model, and that's with its 10-speed automatic. The hybrid V6 LC500H is going to be $97,485, just the extra price for all the batteries and whatnot. Now there's different packages. There's a touring package that's $4,000, and there's also a sport package with a glass roof that's an extra $2,700 that gets you the heated and cooled seats, parking assist, and of course the glass roof. There's a sport package that adds a limited slip differential. Yes, it's not standard. You have to option a sport package for a limited slip differential on this nearly $100,000 Lexus, but it also gives you the Alcantara seats. There's a touring package that has leather seats instead and a Mark Levinson sound system, and you can also get a carbon fiber roof with the sport package, but if you do that, that adds $7,000, and there's also a performance package that gives you the rear steering, active rear spoiler, and variable steering ratio system, which adds $10,000 to these models. So it's looking like, you know, with some options, you can get these things easily into the 110s or higher. So, you know, it just depends on what options you want, much like the Germans, like I said. But cool to have pricing for those. And I think that, you know, the starting price is very competitive still, and hopefully will sell well because it looks fantastic. Next is that Infiniti debuted the new QX50 concept here at the Detroit Auto Show. And so it's very close to production. They're saying this will probably be coming out next year, but this is still a concept and still has some concept car features. But the production version should look pretty close to this. The big news about this is that it's going to be the first application of their awesome variable compression turbocharged engine that, you know, there's been all kinds of info on that. Engineering Explained actually did a great video explaining this new engine, and it's a very cool tech. They're claiming 268 horsepower from this new engine, and it's going to have about 27% better fuel economy when compared to the outgoing QX50 model. And so it's going to be this one. Now, the old one was like a rear-wheel drive based kind of crossover. This one's going to be front biased, intelligent all-wheel drive system supposedly. But, you know, it's going to have all the, you know, latest safety tech and be very competitive with all the other crossovers out there. Honda revealed the 2018 Odyssey, which is all new here, and as you can see, it has a somewhat Civic-esque front bumper there, but, you know, they didn't really mess with the design too much. I mean, it's all new, but it still is a conservative redesign, which I think is good. I mean, again, we're talking about a minivan here. You know, you don't want it to look like a Lexus or anything. So it's, you know, some great improvements. Most of the improvements are, you know, focused on parents with young kids, which is obviously the minivan demographic. And there are some actually cool features. It has night vision, for example, and it has cameras, night vision cameras, to monitor the second and third rows whenever you're driving, so that you can just look at the infotainment screen and get a quick glance without having to actually turn and look back or you know, be distracted, I guess. And so that allows you to get a quick look at your kids, and if the night vision, you can see, you know, even at night, which is handy. It also has a cabin talk feature, which is basically like an in-car PA system, because I mean, this isn't like that big of a vehicle, but, you know, with so many kids putting on headphones and stuff and watching stuff in the car, it's kind of hard to get their attention supposedly. So this PA system is wired into the speakers of the car, but also into the headphones for the built-in screen. And so you can use this cabin talk system to interrupt. It'll pause their videos and allow you, and it'll pipe your voice straight through into their headphones to tell them whatever it is you want to tell them whenever you can't get the kids' attention. And so kind of funny to have that. There's also a bunch of apps that are connected to this large, I think they said it's like a 10.2 inch screen that's mounted to the ceiling there, and it can also stream all kinds of stuff, you know, over Wi-Fi and whatnot. But there's apps. There's the one that's called How Much Farther app, which will tell you, you know, if you have the navigation set up, how far away you are from your destination, so the kids can just keep checking that instead of asking a million times, which is nice. And then there's another app that will actually control the entertainment and the climate systems, which could get interesting with kids. But yeah, and then there's also another app that has a playlist function. So up to 8 people can create personalized music choices and upload it to the audio system. So if everyone's kind of caravanning, you know, maybe older kids or whatever, you can sit there on your phones or whatever and add music, and it's kind of like a virtual jukebox that you have in your van, which is actually a cool idea. Very creative thinking with the Odyssey. I do have to give them that. Even though it is a minivan, it actually does sound very fun in many ways. There's also some practical enhancements as well, such as a magic slide seat in the second row, which basically, whenever you have this center seat of the second row removed, the 2 captain's chairs can slide from left to right. And so what that allows you to do is, instead of having to, you know, run past the one seat and, you know, dive through the middle to get to the third row, now all you do is there's a quick little lever, you just lift it up and slide the seat over, and then that gives you a nice little row there on the outside of the vehicle, you know, outside of the interior there, so that you can just slip right into the third row much easier without having to, you know, kick people's legs trying to get through the second row. And again, just a very well thought out feature and very cool there. Now, this is just going to be coming standard with the normal 3.5 liter V6, I believe the previous Odysseys have had, and that's all they're planning for now. But in other Honda news, in their press conference, they also said that they're going to have a new standalone hybrid model in 2018, not of the Odyssey, but just like a totally separate thing, kind of like a Honda Insight type idea of just a totally new car that's only hybrid, and it's going to be built in the U.S. is what they said. There's lots of people talking about building cars in the U.S. these days, just thanks to the political landscape. And so Honda also said that more than half of their vehicle debuts over the next 2 years are going to have some type of electrification. So more than half of these models are all going to either be hybrids or full electric. So very interesting to see that. Another popular kid hauler got an all-new model as well, and that is the all-new 2018 Chevy Traverse that was revealed at the Detroit Auto Show, and looks very good, a lot more handsome. And I mean, the old Traverse was well outdated, and so this is overdue to say the least. But they're all going to come for the most part with the 3.6 liter V6 and the 9-speed automatic transmission, the very familiar powertrain we see in all the other GM stuff. 305 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. There is a Traverse RS model, but it's not really sporty. It has blacked out trim, but it's the only one that comes with a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and front-wheel drive only, 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. But that's actually like one of the lower models. It's not one of the higher up ones. The other trims, there's going to be the LS, the LT, the Premier, and there for the first time ever is a high country trim for the Traverse, which gives you LED headlights and all the luxury features you'd expect. All-wheel drive is going to be available on all the models except for the RS, of course. There's more space than before. The wheelbase has been stretched so that the third row actually isn't sitting on over the rear wheels there, so it gives you a lot more space there in the third row, supposedly. And the cool thing that they have with the Traverse is that the second row can slide forward and tilt up a little bit, even with a child seat in place. So, if it's tricky getting into the third row, instead of doing the magic slide like Honda does, with this, it's just it tilts forward and gives you a little bit more room there without having to actually flip the seat back down and, screw up, the child seat arrangement there. So, cool little trick there. And, but like I said, it looks good and has all the other improvements, that you would expect on the interior and stuff to bring it up to spec with all the other, Chevy offerings. And overall, I think it's a really nice redo. Another crossover, lots and lots of crossovers, of course. Nissan, like I mentioned last week, they did, in fact, bring the Kazashi or whatever it's called. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. I'm just going to move on. But it's renamed, thankfully, here for the U.S., the Rogue Sport. It's just a smaller, model that the UK and the rest of Europe has already had, and they're bringing it over here since we love small crossovers as well. And so this new Rogue Sport, it's 2.3 inches shorter than the normal Rogue, and the overall length is about 12 inches shorter than the Rogue. And so it's almost as wide, though, as the normal Rogue, so that doesn't look too shrunken down, I suppose. Most of that design, for the smaller one, it just takes a lot of the trunk space out. That hatch is a lot smaller for the rear cargo. So they're saying it's about 22.9 cubic feet of storage behind the second row, and so that's about 17 cubic feet less than the normal Rogue. So just a lot less room, but for those that don't need a ton of room, it might work out great. Although this is called the Rogue Sport, don't think that it's a sportier model, because it's not. It actually is less sporty than the normal Rogue. The only engine available is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that has 141 horsepower and 147 pound-feet of torque, and it's routed through a CVT transmission. So not going to be sporty by any means, not even going to be quick, but, should be fine for the typical buyer that doesn't care about that kind of stuff. The standard Rogue's been selling like crazy. I think they said aside from the F-150, I think it's the best-selling vehicle in the United States. Something crazy like that. So very impressive. And I'm sure this will sell maybe even as well or better than that. So it's going to be available with either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. There's going to be 3 trim levels, the S, the SV, and the SL. And they're targeting a really low starting price with this, because the S model doesn't even have alloy wheels. It's steel wheels with covers. So, I mean, they're going for a super cheap version to say, hey, you can get this car for however cheap, and then they're obviously going to have the nicer models, which is the ones that everyone will most likely buy. It has some all the typical stuff you would expect. Much of the same options you would expect in the Rogue that you see in the Rogue, you get here as well in the Rogue Sport if you want to pay for them. And so, like I said, I'm sure we'll be seeing these things everywhere in no time. Yet another crossover that debuted at the Detroit Auto Show is the 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, which is basically, it's known overseas as the Tiguan Allspace. In the US here, they waited a little while to bring us the new Tiguan because they wanted to give a long wheelbase version, because, you know, in the US everything has to be large, so they wanted to stretch it out so that it can have a third row. The Tiguan, which used to be the small baby Volkswagen crossover, now has a third row option here, so pretty crazy. The third row is going to be standard on front-wheel drive models, but optional on the all-wheel drive models. So I'm sure it should have a good amount of room there. You know, now that it's got third row is an option at least. Now it's going to come standard with either front-wheel drive and the 2-liter TSI engine that makes 184 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque that we see in much of the other Volkswagen products. And the 4Motion all-wheel drive system will be an option. And they're all going to come with the digital cockpit, which is very awesome as well. You know, much like Audi's system, and a bunch of safety features like you would expect. And they say that because of us getting this larger Tiguan, if you don't have the third row up, you get 57% more cargo capacity than its predecessor, which is, you know, very good. Again, for those that are looking for crossovers, you have millions of options these days, and they all seem to be very impressive on paper. And the last debut from Detroit that I'm covering is the 2018 GMC Terrain, which is all new as well. It's based on the 2018 Equinox that Chevy has, of course. And so because of it shares much of the same powertrains with Equinox. Same 3 engines, including a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 170 horsepower. That's the engine that I drove in the Malibu last year. And then you can also get the 2-liter inline 4-cylinder turbo that does 252 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, and that motor is supposed to replace the V6. There is no V6 available anymore for the Terrain. And then you can also get a 1.6-liter diesel turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that does 137 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque. And that comes with a 6-speed automatic. The rest of them come with a 9-speed automatic transmission. And the design of it, I think, actually looks really good. I think it's really nice. It's completely different from the Equinox, which is good for, you know, keeping them separate and stuff. But I think actually just like it's really cool looking. I think it actually looks even better than the other, you know, GMC models like the Acadia. I think this actually looks pretty cool. I like the dimensions. It has this floating roof kind of look to it there with the way the D-pillar is kind of set up there in the back. And it's going to come with SL, SLE, SLT, and Denali trims, and you know, they all have upgraded materials over the outgoing one. One cool thing is, in order to make more space in the center console area, it actually is getting rid of a lever for your gear selector, and it's going to be buttons, much like the new Lincolns. It's going to have buttons for selecting your gears, and so yeah, you can get either front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive in these models, of course, and so yes, yet another competitive crossover in this very hot segment. So that's it as far as all the Detroit stuff. The last 2 stories here this week. The first is kind of amusing, and that is that the EPA fuel economy numbers came out for the 2017 Ford GT supercar, and it may be lower than you're expecting. It gets 11 in the city, 18 on the highway for a combined average of 14 miles per gallon, which for reference is worse than a Lamborghini Huracan with its naturally aspirated V10 engine. And this EcoBoost 3.5-liter V6 does worse fuel economy than that motor. So, you know, I know they did it for racing and they want to be futuristic and all that kind of stuff, but I think they really screwed up. I mean, actually, some people were saying that the previous version of the Ford GT back in 2005, even if you update the fuel economy numbers, because they were changed twice on how they rated fuel economy in the past, 10 years here, but even with those changes, the old supercharged V8 Ford GT probably got at least as good, if not slightly better fuel economy than this twin-turbo V6. So, I mean, yes, it's over 600 horsepower, it's fast, all that kind of stuff, but whenever you have similarly fast cars doing better fuel economy with less efficient old-fashioned engines, it doesn't look very good. Ford GT is still amazing. I think it's an awesome supercar. If I had the money, I'd love to own one. But, just kind of just makes you scratch your head. It's just kind of funny. I'm sure no Ford GT owner is going to care about the low fuel economy. Just kind of funny that, this fuel-efficient engine isn't fuel efficient at all. Especially in a lightweight car like this. It is no excuse. But anyway, I'm not going to rant. The last thing, though, is some upsetting news here for those that are fans of the Mitsubishi Lancer. And that is that Mitsubishi officially announced this week week that the 2017 model year is going to be the final model year for the Lancer, and the production will end in August. Now, they'll probably be sticking around until the end of this year just because of the existing inventory and whatnot. But 2017 is the last model year for the Lancer. Mitsubishi they're not doing very well as a company on their own, of course, and so they have to conserve their resources and stick to the profitable cars, which are the crossovers, and they're focused on all that stuff. And so the Lancer is just going to die off. They will have the Mirage sedan still. That is the only sedan now in the Mitsubishi lineup, and they have no plans for any new sedans. So pretty crazy there in the end of an era. The Lancer is a long-running name, and had some really great cars in its history. But yeah, so anyway, that's it as far as all the news, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching this very long weekly update, and let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.